Welcome to Wild and Finally Fucking Free, the show for disruptors, rebels, and revolutionaries who know they're here to change the damn world. I'm Kylie Patchett, your voice and visibility catalyst, and here we dive into unapologetic truth, magnetic messaging, and visibility that actually feels good in your body, your bones, and your business. We share the stories of the out-of-the-box, neuro-sparkly, creative, witchy wild ones, rewriting how we live, love, learn, and lead. This isn't about being louder. It's about being rooted, resonant, and regulated so you can be real, raw, and ready to roar. If you're done contorting yourself to fit the mold and you're ready to own your voice, your power, and your place in the revolution, welcome home. Let's dive in. Hello, my loves. Welcome back. I am often hearing people in the marketplace when they're talking about storytelling saying, one of the stories you should tell is your origin story. And I don't disagree. But I feel like a more important story is getting underneath the real reason why you were called to do the work that you do. So let's face it, the marketplace is crowded. There is lots of other people who are coaches, lots of other people who are psychologists, lots of other people who are healers, helpers, witches, acupuncturists, chiropractors, psychologists. But why do people actually get drawn to you? And the easiest way to share your unique approach or your unique why behind is to share exactly what drives what you do. So I'm going to share my why story. And it only happened a few years ago that I had this aha moment. So I grew up in a household where I had a parent that dealt with addiction and very poor mental health and often self-harming, and another parent who lived in a different house who was significantly older than me, which contributed to some communication challenges, shall we say. For instance, when I was younger, if a friend of mine who happened to be a boy rang me on the phone, this parent would have an absolute shit fit because girls were not supposed to be called on by boys. So yeah, you can imagine the type of patterning that I grew up in. Anyway, often in childhood, I felt the need to squish down my own feelings and needs because I was very busy with my little antenna up, with my nervous system on hypervigilance mode, looking for threat. And threat to me then meant any time that I was not taking care of my parents' needs. So if you've grown up in a little bit of a dysfunctional family, sometimes you get a sticky note, which is that you're the little person, but you're looking after the big people. So what that created for me was a lot of times in my childhood where I did not feel seen and heard. And as I grew into adulthood and when I first started dating my husband, like I'm 50 now, we met when I was 21. Oh my goodness, almost 30 years ago. When I first started dating him, I had such an activated nervous system around being in a relationship where this person, this beautiful man who was wanting to date me and hang out with me, like I could say anything to him and I didn't have to worry about how he would receive it because he was a sovereign being who is very stable and anchored and grounded. And so it was really odd for my nervous system to actually be able to express myself fully without this kind of internal critic or observer or hypervigilance kind of partner saying, don't say that's going to create an issue. Because there was very real times in my childhood where if I said or did something that was my true desires, then the parent with the not good addiction end of things would become quite unstable. I was in the middle of a healing session. I was doing a womb healing series with the beautiful Sarah Brooke. And if you don't already know Sarah, her name is S-A-R-A Brooke with an E on the end. And I think she's .com. But if you just Google her, you'll find her. Amazing lady. I've known her for a long time. And I knew that there was some generational, particularly motherline stuff that I wanted to clear up. And I'd known Sarah for a long time. I had a deep sense of trust with her. And so I signed up to do these womb healing sessions. And they were done in a series And in one of them, there's a process where we were connecting to my ancestral line, and I had this wild visualization experience where we were talking about unwinding generational patterns. And because in my first iteration of me professionally, I was a geneticist, and what I saw in my mind's eye was my DNA helix, which is, it's like I'm sure you all know, but like a ladder that's been twisted, right? It unwound, and all these kind of blurred bits or sticky, heavy, dense energy bits were being rewoven with this beautiful golden thread. And then after that happened, there was these gorgeous alamander flowers. I don't know if alamanders are all over the world, but they're in Australia. They're this beautiful vine, and they have these yellow trumpet flowers, and they are gold, so vibrant yellow. And I had this moment where I was like, whoa, that's insane. It was so clear in my mind's eye. And then after the session, Sarah and I were talking. I had said to her, I was doing done for you storytelling at the time. And I said to her, Sarah, I'm feeling really tired, like really tired. And I was in the middle of the beginnings of perimenopause. So there was actual things going on physically that were also contributing to this. And we got into this conversation, and she said, can you tell me a little bit about your process when you're working with clients? And I said, because when I meet an individual person, my brain, my pattern recognition brain, turns them into often either a color or a texture or a sensation in my body. And when I was doing done for you work, I was able to slip back into that energy and write copy from their perspective and their language and tone and everything. Now, I've always been able to do that. I've done it in all of my marketing and corporate comms roles. Take on the kind of energy or the story of an organization and be able to speak from that perspective. And Sarah said to me, oh, interesting. Okay. So you're actually able to shift into or slip into someone else's energy. It's like shape-shifting. And I was like, oh, that sounds very special, and that doesn't sound like me. And she said, what do clients say to you when you're working with them in this way? And I said, almost always the words that they say is, I have never felt so seen before. So a lot of them had worked with copywriters before, and they get the stock standard copywriting, which is very formulaic and plug and play. And this storytelling, and from an energetics perspective, was a completely different way of capturing them. And they were like, I've never felt so seen. And I'm like, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's always this word seen. And then Sarah said something that I finally understood my real why underneath what I do. She said, isn't it interesting that in childhood you didn't ever feel seen? And now your entire job, business, life purpose is all around helping people feel seen down deep at the root of who they are. And I have an ability, it's almost like I've got X-ray vision underneath your learned limitations. So when I'm working with a client, I'm not seeing the parts that are activated, that are trying to perfect, or worried about visibility or people pleasing, or what will they say? I can't say that on the internet. My family will see me. Any of the things that I get told. I see straight through to the wild woman heart of each individual person I work with. And I realize now that's actually not something that everyone can do. And yet, because it came so naturally to me, I completely dismissed it. When I understood the why, it was like Sarah gave me in that one healing, not only that beautiful DNA repair, alamander unfolding, but this gift of understanding the why behind what I do. This is why self-expression and being in your own energetic flow and magnetism and voice and visibility activation work is so important to me, because when we are able to speak our unapologetic truths, when we are able to tend to those parts of us that, if any history like me in childhood, where your needs weren't met, or you were meant to play a role for a parent, or you had to be the good girl, or you needed to be a certain way to be loved or approved, and or you've been through any significant trauma that has taught you that it's not safe to be yourself or to be seen or to be desired or any of the things that can happen. When we are able to hold tender and dear those parts of us, and I'm feeling this in my body, hold them dear. These parts of us are just running interference trying to protect us. When we can tend to them and when we can allow our wild woman out, it is not just business changing. This is life changing. Voice and visibility and owning your unapologetic truth will change your relationships. It will change the way you parent. It will change your self-identity. It changes the way that you care for yourself. It changes the way that you go out into the marketplace. It changes the way you invite people into your offerings. It changes the design of your offerings because you're not any longer just designing an offering which is a cut and paste of everyone else's freaking offerings. You're actually allowing the wild woman in you to say, what feels juicy? What feels so fucking cool to do? And that is the energetic key to the door of your very own version of a life and a business that fuels you, that feeds you. And if you're listening to this show, you're not just here in business to create cash flow, right? Yes, cash flow is required so that we can exchange it for things in our lives. But every single person that I work with has this deep, abiding love of humans. They have a deep desire to contribute to the world. And when we are not able to be fully seen, we are not shining our energetic fullness out into the world. And that means that the people who could be helped by our unicorn unique gifts can't see us. They can't feel us. If I was still going out into the marketplace with that little girl that was scared to say what she wanted, scared to take care of her own needs, scared to not have struggle, because that kind of childhood sets your nervous system at a state of dysregulation. And so my set point, what I kept repeating again and again in my life was strive and struggle, strive and struggle, strive and struggle, working hard for everything. Everything has to feel uncomfortable. Everything has to feel difficult. Everything has to be something that I have to do all by myself because I've got no one else to rely on. That real hyper-individualized, over-masculine way of moving through the world. And there's nothing wrong with masculine. I'm not poo-pooing masculine. All I'm saying is that we can be ourselves and allow our magnetism to ripple out into the universe and receive as a result of it. But often, for those of us who have conditioning at play and those little small parts, they are out there managing, firefighting, protecting, trying to not allow the same feelings that happened in the original wounding to repeat themselves. I just want to say to you, your why, that essence underneath why you do what you do. And if you don't think you've got a why story, this is the other thing. If you don't think you've got a why story, like sometimes I'll say to a client, why do you give a fuck about this? Let's talk turkey here. Why do you fucking care? What do you actually offer people? And here's the thing. You could be a psychologist, and this is a perfect example. I've worked with many psychologists in my time in this iteration of my business. And often they are wanting to move from this quite boxed in. In Australia, we have a regulatory body called APRA, and APRA is very corporatized. It's very, this is the right way, this is the wrong way. There is no room for any more coaching or even counseling style. Psychology has to be this way, and this is how you charge for it, and this is how it works, and this is how people can claim it through our medical system, blah, blah, blah. What that does, though, is that for the wild women who are psychologists who are wanting to break free, there is another external silencer going on in their heads, right? And so when I asked one of these beautiful clients, why do you give a fuck? Why do you give a fuck? What do you care? And her answer is, when I see a woman own the fullness of herself, I know that never again will she feel that life is being done to you, that your marriage is being done to you, that the struggle and strive of life is being done to you. Because when she owns her full self, she's sovereign, and therefore she is always at choice. And she's got a personal story underneath that, which is not mine to share. But the point is, there's thousands of people that do something similar to what you do. But there is only one you with your why. There's only one you with the underpinning desire to change things in the specific way that you can do. And when you look out into the marketplace, if you've got any sort of flavor of the comparapreneur, which is one of my archetypes for a fear frame, that spends so much time comparing herself to everybody else on the internet that she gets bogged down and is not able to even make any moves herself, or rinse and repeat someone else's business model or someone else's brand kit or someone else's website or someone else's funnel or someone else's fill in the blank here. If you spend any time comparing yourself and you're in this frame of there is only a certain amount of clients and there's only a certain amount of money and there's only a certain amount of opportunities and there's only a certain amount of blah, 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 then that limited view can really screw with you. But when you actually understand there is only one individual you, and there could be hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even more than that, people that are a perfect fit for what you have to offer. But they cannot find you if you are hiding yourself. And they certainly can't find you if the good girl is still running the show. So that is why your why is so important. That is why I am so freaking passionate about voice of visibility. And I really hope that you're enjoying these more storytelling-based sessions. Let me know. I'd love to hear your review. Toodaloo. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If this episode lit a fire in your body, in your business, deep down in your bones, please take a moment to drop a rating and review so more rebels just like you can find us. And don't keep this goodness to yourself. Share it with your disruptive rebel and revolutionary friends who are ready to roar right alongside of you. Until next time, stay wild, stay unapologetic, and stay fucking free.